Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of At My Desk. I'm your host, Dr. William Lester, and I want to remind you that our show is brought to you by the American Institute of Metaphysics, which can be found online at www.instituteofmetaphysics.com. At My Desk is also brought to you by GameCon Radio, which is online at www.gameconradio.com. Well, if you remember in our last episode, we got onto the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials, and I told you in that show that it was something that was going to have to be stretched out into multiple episodes. And so I think that we'll pick up in that same general area of discussion tonight, but I want to go into kind of a sidebar, if you will, or an offshoot of the discussion, and you'll see when we get into it that it touches on the extraterrestrial question. Tonight I want to talk about something called Cydonia. And Cydonia is a specific region on the planet Mars. And there is an object there. Some people feel a series of objects that are very interesting and certainly deserve additional scrutiny, examination, and observation. Some of you may have heard of the face on Mars, and this face is located in the Cydonia region of Mars. Now I'm going to try to get my pipe lit better, then I'll show you a photograph. Now this image was taken by the Viking 1 orbiter in 1976, and you'll see obviously the camera looking down on this object, and here it is. Now, as you can see, there's not too much ambiguity in this image, and it's pretty obviously a face. Certainly you can pick out areas of the eyes. I'll put it up again. Eyes, nose, mouth, and of course one side seems to be obscured by shadows, as you might expect. And by looking at the shadow, you might ascertain that it's a relatively high object, has a great deal of altitude, but there seems to be also some headwear or headgear. Now let's talk about dimensions. This object is 1.5 miles long, 1/2 mile wide, and about 1/4 mile high. So it's a sizable object. Now, since 1976, NASA has maintained that the image of the face was caused by a, quote, trick of light and shadow. So, one more time, the face on Mars. Now, of course, it gets down, as these things often do, it gets down to it's either a face or it isn't. Now, if it's a face, it means that somebody built it. If it isn't a face, it's a natural rock formation. It's a geological formation. I feel that it is a face, and it is of artificial construction. Now, from there, of course, you get into the area of implications, and they are many and they are heavy, and they speak to why the scientific community is resistant or reluctant to acknowledge the artificiality of the structure. And here's why. The face is not new. It's thousands of years old, at least. Now, if it was built by someone, it was built by someone with a respectable level of engineering and of engineering technology. Additionally, just the facial features alone indicate that the builders were very similar anatomically to humans. In some way, they resembled us. In fact, most likely in many ways. So again, the implications. You're getting into questions about who they were, and by extension, who we are. And of course, because of the proximity of Mars to Earth, the inevitable question, is there an Earth-Mars human-Martian connection? So scientific institutions, social institutions, religious institutions, all have a stake in this question. Well, the whole human race has a stake in the question. And for some people, the answers could be very distressing. Now, for an individual such as myself who has looked at questions like this for many, many years, it doesn't cause me any discomfort or trepidation at all to contemplate the possibility that humans are theoretically descended from or related to whoever the original inhabitants of Mars were. Certainly they're not there now. Many scientists do feel that there was a time when Mars was a very different place with a sustainable atmosphere and running water, like the Earth of today. But I think that it's a fascinating subject to look at, all within the realms of UFOs and the extraterrestrial question. You might theorize that these ancient Martians either went extinct somehow through some catastrophe, some planet-wide catastrophe, or perhaps became spacefarers and perhaps reside somewhere else. These are all questions, these are all theories that we can throw out as to why Mars appears to be no longer inhabited. But if this structure at Cydonia is a artificial structure, if this was something that was built by someone, the implications, historical, religious, scientific, are devastating. I have maintained for many years, as I have examined this face, and I acknowledge I'm not a geologist, I'm not an astronomer, but I am, I feel, an informed observer. And there are simply some things, my friends, that only require that. You only need to be able to look at something and give an objective analysis and draw a conclusion. And my conclusion is that structure was built by the original inhabitants of Mars, who may or may not be connected genetically to us. Certainly this is something that you can Google. There's lots of good information out there. There's lots of garbage out there, as is the case with many of these topics. But I do encourage you to do some further investigations and think about it, draw your own conclusions. Be sure to join me again for another installment of the show. I have enjoyed the emails and the comments. Keep them coming. Keep watching. And be sure, once again, at some later date, to join me right here at my desk.